Well, hi YouTubers, I'm back with 60 books in isolation, and it is a first of a trilogy called Giovanna and Tom Fletcher, Eve of Man. Now, how do you choose between love and the future of the human race? This book came out, I think, last year. Yep. Actually, no, 2018. Okay, so it came out 2 years ago. And let me read the blurb. All her life, Eve has been kept away from the opposite sex, kept from the truth of her past. But at 16, it's time for Eve to face her destiny. Three potential males have been selected for her. The future of humanity is in her hands, so she's always accepted her fate. Until she meets Bram. Eve wants control over her life, she wants freedom. But how to choose between love and the future of the human race? Right, so, interesting trilogy. Obviously his first book. It's done, the chapters are between. First is Eve and it's Bram. Essentially, it's 50 years since girls stopped being born. There were no more girls. And suddenly Eve comes along and she is like literally the last, she is the last person. She is why the last man. She is children of men. She is the last. And well, her mum passed away in childbirth because the mum was actually quite old when she gave birth to her. She's taken away from her father. She is kept in a literal Tower of Babel in London, of all places. And it's basically, since no women are being born, no girls are being born, the world has become an absolute dystopia, which is I wasn't particularly cool about. And I'll get to that in a second. And it's all gone to hell. And then she's like the last one, but she is like, her job is to kickstart humanity, if you will. And three potentials have been chosen for her, and here we go. This is it. It's when she's meeting the first one, Connor, and this really kind of sums up how people see Eve. Because Connor has never seen a woman before, at all, right? It seems Connor's also expecting trepidation. At first, he hops from foot to foot, rubbing his palms down his thighs and his navy trousers. His chest becomes concave, his knees knock inwards, and he seems to squirm. He stares at me, his dark eyes wild and disbelieving. "You're real," he swallows. "Find it difficult to speak." "Of course," I reply, my voice sounding higher and lighter than normal. Now I've got the pleasant bass tones to compare it with. "Such a pleasure to meet you, Connor," I say, moving towards him. Basically, Connor kind of freaks out and he throws up over Eve. Okay? Yeah. Because Eve is... I know, it's kind of bothered me as well. Now, the thing is, she is the last woman on the planet. Well, it's not the last woman, but she's the last woman of, obviously, childbearing age. Okay? There are women who are 66 and older. And so most men have never seen a woman before. And every time they see her, they freak out. They absolutely freak out at seeing her. And the problem is with Eve is that Eve as a character, she's described as beautiful. People describe her as beautiful. She is become the epitome of what the idolized woman should be, instead of just being a normal woman, if you will. Okay? She's basically put on the pedestal. She's been basically sculpted and molded into being the perfect example of femininity. Which I find that a little bit troubling as well. It's kind of like we're going to basically mould you into being perfect, especially when the kind of leader of this movement, if you will, who's been protecting even a Tower of Babel all her life, Aunt Vivian, is herself a woman. It doesn't really kind of explore that. It seems this really kind of reinforce the gender stereotypes, which I found really, really uncomfortable. And Eve is essentially, she has her own maidens, her own aunts, who essentially their job is to protect her and keep an eye on her and mould her into this public example, when you're thinking, is that stuff really important? Does it really matter that Eve is beautiful? Does it matter, okay, that she's so aesthetically pleasing? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. But of course Eve has to be stunning. Yep, absolutely stunning. And then also when it comes to stereotyping as well, okay? Right. It is when she meets Diego, the second potential. Right. Now, however, studying Diego, a simple man who doesn't seem extraordinary in any way, it's hard to imagine what they saw in him, or what attributes they felt would be beneficial to any future offspring. "I study hard," Diego agrees, propping his elbow on his table and resting his chin in his palms. "This is an honour, to be here, to be chosen. I've taken it very seriously. I pray to ask for guidance, because all I can be." He says passionately, now spreading across the hand of his chest, Earth needs us to be strong, to give ourselves over for the cause. And Diego turns out to be an absolute nutter, okay, who tries to, at this time, it's, Eve is wearing a disguise, okay, she's in the room, and just kind of make Diego a bit more comfortable, and Diego kills Mother Nina, who is one of Eve's handmaidens, if you will, one of her aunts. So, because Diego turned out to be, yeah, nuts. As I said, okay, you know, going on stereotypes. And that's actually not cool. That is really not cool. And then also in the situation is Bram. Now, Bram is part of this, it's called the projection program. Now, to keep Eve company, she has a hologram friend called Holly. Okay, Holly the hologram, okay, fine. And three individuals, okay, young-ish, okay, because obviously it's a world where the average man is obviously a few years older than Eve, is they take turns basically become a holographic projection called Holly to keep Eve company and to basically give her a female friend. Essentially, in a way, you can argue that Eve's been gaslighted her entire life. Who she has talked to, okay, is a hologram, okay, which take turns. But the lead one is Bram because his father, Dr. Wells, is basically the one who started this entire program. And yeah, holographical women as well. And this bit here, okay? Right. As we discuss a projection program another time, my father interrupts, obviously wanting to get back on track. Holly, Vivian, feels it be beneficial for the remaining potential to spend a little quality time with Holly, a sort of stepping stone to Eve. He finishes and looks around the room. Silence. You want us to use Holly to flirt with the guys? Asked Jackson, looking confused. The virtual pimp returns. Jackson scoffs, ever the alpha male. Dude made a career about pretending to be a girl, get over it. Hartman heckles, and one of the Hollies, but Simon slouches in his chair. Now that's interesting because not Hartman's reaction, but the thing is, in a world like this, in a world okay with no women being born, this would kind of really kind of turn on the kind of like gender boundaries and gender bias, if you will. Now a good example of this is, just as an example, is well years ago, male opera singers, and this is absolutely brutal, okay, but male opera singers at a very very young age they were castrated, which is horrific, and obviously to keep their voice at a certain level, to keep their voices young. Back in Shakespeare times, when we were allowed on stage, so basically boys took on the typical gender roles. Romeo and Juliet was performed. First time Romeo and Juliet was performed, it was it was two men as Romeo and Juliet, and it was fine. It was only later on that women were were given permission to go on stage, and so this was kind of, I think that reaction is a little bit weird because obviously in a world with no women, the whole kind of gender rules, if you will, are totally twisted as well. And there are some examples like further along, because obviously Bram has kind of fallen for Eve, okay, through the Holly guys. He's one he's most close to, and Eve is pretty savvy. She guessed that a different Holly is due to the eye colours always changing, even though Holly herself never changes. But it's like another example, okay? Because obviously, there's daddy issues in this book. Here we go. This is when Bram is chatting about. No, sorry, no. This is where kind of like the difference between Bram's situation and Eve's situation, because Bram has a difficult relationship with his father, and whereas Eve thinks about her father in very, very negative terms. Here we go. The situation with my father is Eve. It's slightly different. I don't really remember him either. I know he tried to kidnap me when I was 3, credited him being cut off entirely. I'm vaguely reminded of the incident because of the moon-shaped scar he caused on my wrist. A little rough patch I always catch myself rubbing. Probably out of habit. Don't much about the episode other than a door creaking, opening in the dark, strong hand grabbing mine and pulling me from my bed, lots of shouting and confusion, a scuffle and Daddy's tormented face at the side of my bloodied arm as they dragged him away. Don't much of it is true or whether I dreamt it. Okay? Right. Vivian had briefed me on him, mostly about what happened when I was last in his company. She told me little about my ancestry. He said they would keep my father to be a key figure in my life growing up, but it was too tough for him to be around me. I've been told he blamed me for the loss of his wife. Why surprising? They reportedly happy before she got pregnant with me. That changed everything, apparently. Now, that's the thing about Eve. She is a teenager, and obviously she has no idea how everyone in her life has gaslighted her. The fact is, she even says the line, "My father tried to kidnap me." Does because that's her reality. She has been gaslighted, and it's just how can I figure that Eve's trying to find her independence, but she is literally the last symbol of humanity, and there's kind of conflict going on between a heart or a head, if you will. Now the thing is, this is quite twisted as well, is that why Eve has been developing, obviously, she's been harnessed. Her eggs are being harnessed. Her DNA is basically being harnessed, okay, because they want to kind of give forth to the next generation. Now the thing is why Vivian, and I'm going to give respect to her, this villain in the story is a woman, is essentially she wants to use Eve's progeny to kind of impregnate the sons of the world's most powerful leaders, basically create dynasties, if you will. Okay? Yes, that's one of the absolute goals, in it for the money. Okay? Basically Eve's body is like collateral for the world. Okay? To suppress people, to have no kind of freedom. I mean, sorry. And it also is quite interesting as well, and this is from a, I guess, gender narrative, but since no girls are being born, and there was now predominantly men, and actually was a cult of boys, too many boys are being born. So like the biblical times, when the Pharaoh, and with everyone it is in the book of Genesis, is like debatable, basically wanted to cull the Jewish population, which is obviously in actually no, so well, whatever, Moses, okay, you remember Moses? And so then Moses was sent down the river, but obviously, okay, because Jewish children were being culled, I think very similar happened to the boys. However, Bran was kind of missed because Mel protected him. He was too old for the culling. Now, this book really should really kind of explore the gender barriers a bit more, the kind of like gender bias, because in this world where the world has gone to hell, and because no girls are being born, everyone kind of gave up on the world, and it's like a nuclear wasteland, and there's flooding, and there's desperation and deprivation, and it's just a little bit. You still thinking, really, really, there's absolutely nothing anymore, no hope at all, no hope, no hope. There you go. And the fact is that the women who were still alive at a certain point, their bodies were frozen for a time where they in this massive tower of Babel, if you will, where until the point they could be unfrozen and be useful again for the future. This bit here. This is Bram, okay? I continue along the hallway. As I turn the corner to my right, another figure is walking towards me. A young man wiping his eyes. I've seen him down here before. Slim build around my age, blonde hair poking out a baseball cap he's wearing backwards. I don't say anything as we pass. His eyes are puffy and his cheeks blotched from crying. His face like a science lab. There's almost like spiritual about the atmosphere. Peaceful even, like a cemetery. Except here the visitors pray that it's not their friend or family member's final resting place. At 3 blocks on the right, I count 14 tanks in. I stop and reach the 15th chrome cylinder. I stand up and hold my palm to the light so I can see the tiny silver chain and smoke was attached to it. I sign and rest the head on the tank. Hi, Mum. Yeah, Bram's own mother is basically frozen. Yeah, women are basically frozen for the future when there is no future. Now, another thing as well is interesting is what I said before, okay, about the whole kind of gender dynamics changing, is things like lipstick and makeup. They no longer exist. Makeup no longer exists. It's a bit where Eve is trying on makeup, which is used sparingly, okay, because it's not manufactured anymore. Things aren't manufactured anymore. And I get it, this is the first of a trilogy, but the thing is, and it's mentioned, okay, that Bram sees male couples holding hands and kissing, and which I really hope in the second one, which is out now, that's kind of explored a little bit more. The whole kind of gender barrier they feel being lifted. Everything is kind of a little bit different now. And it's one thing I didn't like though is that this book rely way too much on stereotypes. Basically, Bram escapes the tower, if you will. He knows too much. Finds the resistance, low resistance, and it's a bit here. It's a bit here. I'm not here to join you, I say to them, and I say under Frost, who is the leader's eyes. My heart pounds. I'm not through any of this though. I'm not for any of this through, but somehow I know it's right. Oh really? Frost says, digging his dirty fingers into the arm of his chair. I'm here to lead you. Straight away, Bran becomes the leader of the revolution to free Eve. But the thing is freeing Eve from what? From one, she will go from one prisoner to a new prisoner. Okay? She'll either be with the resistance, the thievers, if you will, or she'll be in the tower. However, she's always going to be a commodity. She's always going to be collateral for someone. That's the reality. Now, Eve as a character, yes, I like. She's been forced into this role, and now she's finding her voice and her independence. She meets Bram, it kind of sparks something. And she actually does physically meet Bram in person as well, which I thought was a little bit. But it doesn't change the fact that she's been gaslighted her entire life. And every time her acts of rebellion have always kind of fallen flat in the past. Now, one thing though is this book, and I hope explores in the future, okay, the kind of like gender barriers as well. I mean, just because there's no women being born doesn't mean, okay, that what it's, the whole world, okay, is just like a masculinity, okay. There be nuances, there be other individuals, and I've maybe characters who are non-binary, or people, individuals who are transgender. That is something that could easily be explored, but I truly hope it does. That'd be quite interesting as well, from, let's say, a group of individuals who are transgender, okay, meet Eve, okay, with someone who inside their women, and they've had the surgery to make their soul match the outside, okay, to become their true selves, meeting Eve. That'd be an interesting dynamic to explore. What I just didn't like was that this book just weighed way too much on gender stereotypes, which for a book written by both a male and a female, I find a little bit too jarring. The whole kind of without women, okay, the world will go to hell because men are men and men don't care. Okay, men about power and that kind of stuff. Especially when, okay, that the lead villain in this book, Vivian, is female. There you go. But I did like the description and I did like the characters, so I look forward to seeing what the sequel brings, and maybe it might expand the world, because it seems to happen in a very small part of London. Basically, it's a very small area of London. I really hope we see more of this world, okay, or the dystopian world where, hey, the women are born. Another thing interesting though, from a biological point of view, is there were so many mentions of all these tests being done on women to find out why they weren't having girls. But I started thinking, hold on, since it's the male who is the gender supplier, if you will, because women are X and then men are either X or Y, and that creates a baby's gender. Wouldn't the issue be more men than women? Hmm, that kind of confused me, and it never ever explained why no females are being born at all. But anyway, it's still worth a read. Anyway, I sign off here and take care, everyone. And bye now.